following program on Ada Derana 24 is classified for general audience. It is intended for all ages. It contains little or no violence, no strong language, and little or no sexual dialogue or situations.
A very good evening. You are joining the Business Best, a platform for the best in the business and an opportunity for you to connect with innovation, excellence and talent as we introduce entrepreneurs and veterans from various industries. There are many organizations working on different levels addressing climate change, social justice, youth empowerment and so forth. And most of these bodies are action-oriented because without actions, it's nothing. So they provide advice, support, and they give ideas to build a resilient future for all of us. Today on our show, we are talking about such internationally recognized organization, SLYCAN Trust. We have invited the Executive Director Global of SLYCAN Trust, Vositha Wijenayaka, to enlighten us about the role of SLYCAN Trust in building a resilient future in Sri Lanka and globally. Welcome, a warm welcome, Vositha, and thank you very much for being on our show today.
Thank you for having me.
Vositha, tell me about you. Who are you? And what's your role in SLYCAN Trust?
Okay, so who I am. So I work as the Executive Director Global, as you mentioned, of SLYCAN Trust, which is a think tank. We started in Sri Lanka and we expanded to a global one, which is based in Africa and in Europe as well. So we work primarily in Europe, Asia and Africa for the country focus. I lead the work globally, and I'm a lawyer by profession. And I specialize in international law mainly. So we engage in negotiations of climate change, sustainable development, as well as a lot of research and policy work. Okay. In addition to which we do also work that is capacity building, technical support provision as well.
Wow, nice, in various fields.
Yes.
Let's talk about it. And tell us more about SLYCAN Trust. What is SLYCAN Trust? We know that it is an internationally recognized organization. Tell us more about it.
Yeah, so SLYCAN Trust is a think tank, as I mentioned. Okay. So we work mainly on research, policy work, technical support provision, capacity building of different stakeholders. And the areas we focus on is climate change, sustainable development, social justice, stakeholder engagement, entrepreneurship and innovation, education. So it's a wide range of topics we work on, and also animal welfare. And we work at local, national, regional and global levels. We work on different topics, like I mentioned, but especially some of the programs focused on what would relate to today.
Yes, yes.
I think we have
timely topics, I would say.
Yes. So we have climate change, but we also have finance literacy, risk management that comes to play a role. Supporting economic empowerment with entrepreneurial skills, livelihood development. We have a program called Ethical X, which focuses on this, as well as innovative and inclusive business models, which would be private-public partnerships, as well as communities coming to play a role.
Wow, a lot of things you do. So who is your team? Who is on your team?
Oh, we have quite a few. So we have a team in Sri Lanka, and we have people based in Germany, Africa, and different parts of the world.
Okay.
So when you say, I would make a list of people for the names.
Yes. What are the main roles of your organization?
So we have a research team, we have a team that does comms, we have people working on policy specifically. We have partnerships with governments. So if you're working outside in a country where we don't have an office, even if we have an office, we do have partnerships with the government to support the activities, where there are fellowship programs, where governments are supported in engaging in climate-related policy as well. Okay. So it could be a government person who is under a secondment or a fellow under the work that we're doing, as well as staff in our office.
So you told about research. I'm really interested in knowing about what these researchers are about.
So research can be in different fields again. So for example, when we're doing a conservation activity, there would be a biodiversity assessment and research with the community that we do. Say, for example, if it's mangrove conservation, researching on the scientific aspects that would relate to it, plus community engagement, the potential for it, prior to applying the project activities, or planning sometimes also. But then there's also specific policy research that would be there on a specific topic that would feed into a policy. That would be key things that need to be included in a policy. So different kinds of those, but it would be policy research or case studies. There's also work that happens with media, so like working with the media, which is evidence-based communication. So there's a wide range of research and evidence generation that happens.
Right. So all your work is based on research?
I'll say most of it, yes.
Most of it, right, okay. So how can like, let's say the community, the ground level or the low level will benefit out of this work?
Okay, I would say ground level and the local level. How would this benefit? I mean, if you do climate-related work and resilience building, it has to be at all levels. And what we do would have work that happens for planning processes that are at local level as well. So there's a community engagement there. They would participate in decision-making processes. And also they would get awareness creation on how they could address climate impacts or other economic livelihood development, that sort of work. So there's information access, there's engagement with different stakeholders that they would also benefit from. And there would be activities that we would capacity build them on as well. So there's numerous levels of it, but awareness creation, capacity building, participation in policy processes and planning, and support provision where needed for these activities would be what we would do. Okay,
so when it comes to youth empowerment, it's not easy, right, to work with the youth and all. So what do you do to empower the youth?
I wouldn't say it's difficult. I mean, I think there's a lot of enthusiasm amongst youth.
Nice. So they come in and they do work with you, or how does it happen?
Both ways, I think. So both in the sense, first one, what you mentioned, youth approaching us and engaging with us. And then also us working to try to engage youth and effectively engage with them in different policy processes, as well as research and also capacity building work we do. So throughout the years, we've had a platform called Global Youth Forum. It started in Sri Lanka with the Ministry of Environment in 2016 as an initiative we did with them. And then it continued, and at present it's a global one that's happening across the world, where youth from different parts of the world would engage. Some who would engage in the international policy processes, others who would potentially do both international policy as well as action on the ground. So there are different levels of engagement, but people do things and they engage, and there's a lot of interest. And I think in Sri Lanka, a lot of youth engagement or enthusiasm in tackling climate change is there over the years. So it's part of us to part of our work rather, to kind of support this enthusiasm, the keenness, and ensure that what is promoted and advocated for is technical and evidence-based. So sometimes you could advocate for something which is not technically sound. So building capacities, creating awareness, giving them that technological support that might be needed for better information access, not by giving laptops or something, but avenues for them to access these centers and hubs and whatnot. So that would generate them to be better engaged.
Okay, so as you're talking about climate change, projects on climate change, I would like to know about one of your projects. Like, how do you start? Like, do you start it when you identify that okay, there is an issue, there is an alarming issue. Okay, we need to do something about it. Is there someone who's telling you to do these things, or is it just your body who start working on something? How does it happen?
There's two or three ways that we would do it. One would be if the country has already identified this as a priority. I mean, Sri Lanka or any other country. So how we can support in addressing this. So we would build a program or project around it that would feed different ways of providing information, research, or capacity building, or any form of needed gap or need that needs to be assessed. So we would support in that. The second one would be through stakeholder engagement in planning what needs to happen. So if there's, say, addressing climate loss and damage, something we recently did was identifying the gaps and needs that need to be addressed for effectively addressing this. So there would be multiple stakeholders engaging, and we would gather this information and we work with these stakeholders to address this. So it could work differently. So one would be that there's already evidence science that is there that we would build on, be it a priority that's listed by a policy in the country that can be validated from research that's already there, or stakeholder engagement, or if we notice that there's a gap through the engagement we've had with stakeholders, then we build on that.
Nice, thank you very much. And we are talking about SLYCAN Trust Global today. We'll see you after this break. Welcome after the break, and you are joining at the Business Best, and we are in conversation with Vositha Wijenayaka, the Executive Director of SLYCAN Trust Global. So Vositha, you give entrepreneurial support as well, and you support in innovative business models.
Yes.
Tell me more about it.
So that's one of our main programs that works on linking risk management, climate risk management, resilience building with innovative solutions to address climate change. So we started this hub, which is called Ethical X Climate and Innovation Hub, which has a form of an incubator plus knowledge base.
Okay.
And we do capacity building and sessions for those who are interested on learning how on how climate change impacts their entrepreneurial activities, what are the resources they could access to address these. If we have the technical capacity or resource people with us, we would support them directly. And also we have set up this model where there is a private entity called Climafuge that works with us, which would potentially invest in some of these entrepreneurs. So we recently launched this model, and there would be a community engagement, ethical component, sustainability, where we would look at the carbon footprint, the material that's used, the water use, how things are done in a sustainable way.
Sustainability.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. And also looking at climate aspect, which caters to looking at risk management and the impact on the climate. So here we have also hubs that are set up at local level. So one of which is in the Trincomalee district, where we will work with the community in partnership with the government there. So basically looking at models where there's public-private partnership, community, civil society, and everyone working together. That's kind of like what we're trying to do.
Oh, nice. So let's say if you take food production globally, the impact it has on the environment is an alarming fact, I would say, because many claim that it is not ethical, the procedures they're following, or it's not sustainable. So let's say this is one of those areas that you are already doing projects, because when I was going through your website, I saw sustainable, ethical and climate-friendly food systems, where you support these systems in Sri Lanka. How do you do that?
So again, three levels of it. So ethical part of it, sustainability and climate part of it. So if I start with the climate aspect, so managing climate risk in the production, creating awareness among farmers, supporting them from risk transfer processes. Say, for example, there's a drought or a flood, the risk that they feel post-disaster, how that can be managed. So working with them, say, different forms of insurance schemes that could be available as a buffer for them, or just having a risk pool or a finance pool that's available. So avenues that they could look at. So that's something we are working on. And then sustainability aspect. So food waste, looking at that, the packaging aspect of it. There's a lot of need for packaging that's environmentally healthy, or looking at the friendly aspect of how we can do it without having a lot of waste generated. So there's also another creation of entrepreneurial skills that could be generated from that gap. Awareness plus also linking the solution. So if I work with a food, say, hospitality industry person working on food, that person would need safe packaging that's non-pollutant. Then we look at who might have that option and try to connect the dots. So like a networking capacity also is there, and ethical aspects. So the just transition in the food industry. So for example, plant-based protein, growing plant-based protein and scaling it up, looking at cruelty-free products. So we are working on alternate milk options and also supporting livestock industry to transition. So looking at the ethical aspect of the food industry, also the working group how the salaries would be for them, whether they are getting benefits out of what they need in the production cycles and stuff. So it's a broad spectrum of it.
Yes. Basically, you're making their lives easier.
We are hoping to do that. We are trying to do that, yes.
So how many are working with you from that level? I mean,
in the sense of the community?
Yes, community.
Okay. So in numbers, I wouldn't be able to say exactly.
So, yes.
So basically, right now we have entrepreneurs working with us. That would range from about 30 to 40, depending on the engagement. But then we also have communities that would be, they're not registered as such, but say, for example, if we have a session in the divisional secretariat, then they would come and engage with us. So it depends on how many of them engage in all of it. But we also have the hub set up for them to come and access information where needed. So we work in different districts and then divisional offices where we would support through these hubs. And at national level, different multiple actors. So it would be the government sector, it could be the private sector, it could be youth who would come and get this information, be part of a multi-actor partnership. So for the food industry or the food sector, we do have this partnership. And we have about 80 partners already, including some of the ministries and different service providers and private sector. Banks also are part of this. So the discussion is kind of a holistic one. So when someone says, I cannot access funding, then the banks would give the advice in saying, this is how you could potentially do it. So there's like different levels of engagement in the network. But I wouldn't say everyone needs to be involved in every step of the way, but they have the opening to do.
So these processes are like mostly inclusive, I would say. You are
yeah, so that's the main thing. So inclusive, innovative, and supportive of doing what people need to do.
And on your website, there were like a number of events that you've organized, launching climate-friendly business models and partnerships, dialogue on food entrepreneurship, workshops on climate-friendly entrepreneurship in Sri Lanka. Tell me about these events.
Yeah, so
if anyone is interested to join these events, how can they do that?
So they could definitely write to us. So you have the website and the email would be there. So it's like
a very comprehensive website, I would say, with a
Thank
lot
you.
of pictures and a lot of articles on it.
Okay, thank you. That's I'll tell the communications team they're very interested to hear that. I'm glad that is of yours and it's useful. So if anyone's interested, they definitely can reach out to us. So some of them are closed sessions based on a stakeholder group.
Okay.
So when we advertise them, we would indicate which stakeholder group is the main one for that. But most of them are open. And if anyone wants to be part of this partnership I mentioned, food systems, and we're also expanding to multiple other sectors. So fashion is one for the next 3 years for us.
Wow.
Tourism is another one. And we're looking at SMEs as a priority, plus the coastal and marine sector. So we would engage with entrepreneurs working on these and linking with biodiversity-based, ecosystem-based action that could connect to ethical, sustainable, and climate-friendly solutions. So anyone interested, do reach out. There are a lot of avenues to engage. We could be at the local level, could be at the national level, or even international if you're watching from outside.
Wow, a lot of things on your plate. Vositha, how do you manage all these?
That's a good one. That's a good one. I try to manage. But
just give us, what is your secret of managing all these things, which is a really lot on your plate? I mean, a lot of things you do and carrying all these responsibilities.
I think it's liking what you do. So if you're really passionate about something, if you want to see some things done, go through it and make sure things are done right. I think you find the time for it somehow. It's a matter of trying to keep health and family and work balance, which is an effort, but I think still people manage if they really want to do something.
Nice. That's a real piece of advice for me, I guess. So if anyone is interested to connect with you, let's say to work with you, to be in these processes, how can they connect with you?
So there's always a call that we have most of the time.
Do you recruit people? I saw some of the vacancies on your site.
So whatever we have would be advertised on our website or LinkedIn. But if anyone's interested and you think some of the work that's being done is of interest, do send your CV and connect with us. There might be opportunities of engagement. But there's also networking and engagement, other processes that are there, which is more informal as well. So do reach out. There will be answers.
There will be answers. Okay. So, Vositha, thank you very much. And what is your final message, finally, for someone who is watching us? What is your message to them?
I would say don't close yourself up. tried to do things differently and in a way that's inclusive and innovative, because people would learn something and they think they have to do a job based on that. So this product, the organization, is something which is evolving, and we are learning along the way. So keep learning, keep finding the gaps and address them, and link the businesses and entrepreneurship skills to it. There's always scope to do that, I think.
Because there are a lot of opportunities out there.
Yes, definitely.
Yes. So thank you very much, Vositha, for joining us today. And it was a pleasure having you in our discussion. And I'm pretty sure that our viewers must have learned a lot by listening to you. Because SLYCAN Trust Global, when I was going through your website, I learned a lot. Because those are not alien topics, but I would say, but things that we really need to pay attention to.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, I wish you all the very best in all your future endeavors. Vositha, thank you very much once again for joining us. And don't limit yourself, because there is a world out there waiting for you. Grab all these opportunities with your innovation. I'll see you next week. Have a pleasant evening.